good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from, or if you are catching us on replay. This is the Awesome Journey, and I am your host, Kelly Steinicke, along with my co-host in care, Christy Howard. And we are just two girls that connected on LinkedIn 15 years ago, have giving hearts, a passion for paying it forward, and I may have prayed to be living louder in my purpose. And now here we sit in front of microphones, bringing you the Awesome Journey. And as many of you know, that one of our main focuses was to highlight incredible individuals to share their unique stories and challenges, because when we all break it down, we're all united in our personal journeys. And one of the things that we've kind of, and I'll say, I guess it's been me sort of joking about when we put this all together, was we were like, we just want to help everyone. And and we do. And if we could, we would. But it wasn't just about highlighting, incredible stories from trials to triumphs, turning pain into purpose, or those sorts of things. We also really wanted to, at the core of everything is all about mental health. And how can we really make a difference? There's so much dark out in the world, and we're like, we just want to bring a little bit of light, hope, inspiration, and motivation to people. And one of the ways we wanted to do that was to highlight job seekers, give them a spotlight, amplify them, because there are way too many of them. We continue to see more layoffs. And so this is our part of giving back and trying to help those who are seeking. And today we have with us Jeff Witherspoon, who we are highlighting, and we're so grateful to have you here. And before we dive into it, let me turn it over to my co-host in care, Christy Howard.
Hello, hello, hello. It's Tuesday. We like Tuesday
Yeah.
as much as we like Fridays, but we're on this side of the earth, so it's an awesome journey. So we're excited to have Jeff. So we've had a few job seekers, and those who know me, if you don't, go read my recommendations, blah, blah, blah. I help job seekers, and Jeff has been unemployed for 8 months, and that's a long time in the real world. And so we have had a few job seekers on, but this is our first male. Yes. And because of the mental health, and there's a lot of pressure on you, Jeff, now, Kelly and I have come to learn that, mental health in men, there's a stigma. We learned that from Chris, and we've learned that with a few of our guests on here. And understanding of being vulnerable and asking for help is a really hard thing, as well as this job search. I've never seen it like this. It's crazy. It's like cray. So anyway, Jeff, tell us about you. Give us a little snippet about who you are, what you're looking for, where you'd like to work. I mean, just talk to us.
Well, I've been a director of operations for a hospice management company, which I really, really loved up until 2022, when the owners and I kind of had a falling out, and they decided that they wanted to reorganize. I really love being in healthcare and being able to take care of the elderly and those who actually need it, because hospice is just much more than just, older people. I had a patient that was, 3 years old, and, you're taking care of these patients. But yeah, I've been unemployed almost 8 months now. I did not think it was going to be this hard to land a job, especially with my experience and my education. I figured, I'll find something, 3-4 weeks. And with all the massive layoffs, it just got astronomical, just compounded. So I'd like to stay in healthcare, because that's where my field is. I started in healthcare back in the 90s with a company called Continental Healthcare Systems that did hospital software. And, I ended up in healthcare with, being a director for a hospice company. So I really, want to stay in that field.
So that's your passion.
Yes.
Your your passion is to help other people.
Yeah, because working at hospice, that is not for the faint of heart by any means. And that's one of those things for me. And unfortunately, I think too many of us have had experience through that process. But what you all do is so far beyond just the patient because it's family care. It is like incredibly selfless giving work, which does speak volumes about who you are. So I mean, just as someone who's been on the other side of it, thank you for what you do. And I guess the other thing, and we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about bringing you on here and highlighting, is you would almost think that in the market, because healthcare with our baby boomer population, you would think there's so many jobs available out there and pulling in, and totally fair assessment to say, oh, it'll be 3 or 4 weeks before I get a job. But then that first month goes by and you're like, man, I haven't even had a bite. And again, 8 months later, and you're not alone. This is a way too common story in all industries. I mean, I'm seeing this from so many people, and I know Christy has seen much more. Where along this journey, because I'd imagine it's been an emotional roller coaster for you as well, knowing that this time is going and I'm not getting anything. What has the process of looking for a position, finding something that you think you're suited for, and applying? Like what share some of the things that you've gone through over the last 8 months in that arena?
Oh, some of it, it's been a nightmare. My first phone interview was in March, and that was with a company that was in healthcare. They do a software for long-term care and senior care facilities, which, I'm thinking, hey, this is right up my alley. When I got laid off, of course I had to redo my resume, and my old commanding officer, who's still a friend of mine, hooked me up with a company called Hire Heroes. And so they redid my resume. They allowed me to, utilize their job board. I figured, I got this thing made. And Michael's like, no. You need to be on LinkedIn. You need to start making connections. You need to start interfacing with people. And that was a whole new world to me. I had never done that. I'm not one that likes to ask for help. If I can't do it myself, then I don't want to do it. And the more the months came, the worse it got.
Yeah.
And you really, from a job seeker standpoint, you really start getting into a depression, because you're thinking, what am I doing wrong here? And it wasn't until our mutual friends, Daryl and Graham, put together this kind of common chat group, that I didn't know what I was doing. And so, I mean, I'm just thankful for them, among other things.
How did you find them? Just by doing searches and connecting with people?
I think I connected with Daryl first, and it was just on the main LinkedIn page. He had posted something, and I don't remember what it was, to be perfectly honest. And he started talking about mental awareness and mental health, especially when it comes to job seekers.
Yeah.
And I had commented on him saying, I understand, I've been there, I'm going through it right now. And I just started, commenting on his post, and then Graham started commenting on my post. And that's how we kind of got in touch. And then Daryl kind of pulled me off to the side, if you will, or, messaged me off to the side and said, hey, I'm going to do this. Is that something you think you want to look at? And it's like, I'll take all the help I can get.
Yeah. Well, and if those who are listening, Daryl Clack and Graham's going to be on, I believe, in 2 weeks. He's going to be on twice. He's a recruiter. So they both are people you should go follow and connect with because their content is heartfelt.
Yes.
They're not just recruiter. They're heartfelt. And it's pretty cool. It's just how they are. I want to go through some of our comments and just, quickly. Oh, I got to go wrong screen. Sorry. We have Joe McLaren. Joe McLaren, and I probably saying it wrong. He is also a recruiter, and it's 𝑀𝒉𝒆 because he's showing up as a LinkedIn user, but his first name's Joe. And then we've got Patricia Thornton, and she's a job seeker. She's been out for a long time. She's in the mortgage industry. So, the mortgage industry shut down. Every industry shut down. Yeah. And we know Greg. He's a good friend of Jeff's. So let's see. I'm just going to quickly go through this. Brendan, I believe he is coming in next week. He's a job seeker as well. We've got Ashley Davis, who's a job seeker. And let me just pretty much, nothing against you people, but I want the story to be told. Yeah. So Vijay, he says it's time to end this nightmare. We all agree with this. Yes. Job search has been crazy lately, and 8 months is too long. Instead of this long and endless job search, we need to change our approach, switch to AI-powered matching, be found. You've got the ATS, which is really just a database. I'm still old school. Here's my resume. Let's have a conversation and let's find out why I applied. Don't assume that I'm too old. I'll be bored. I'll be overqualified. Yeah, I'm overqualified, but there's a reason why.
Well, and that's actually a thing. And they call it ageism. I think ageism is actually a thing.
It is.
One of the things that I went through, and I'm still going through it, and it's something that Greg has been helping me with, is yes, I have years of experience. I've been in the field since the 90s. I grew up as a tech weenie, earned my MBA because I wanted to better myself. And half of me thinks that these people look at these resumes and see, oh, he's got this. Oh, there's page 2. Oh, well, he's too old. And we set him off to the side. Mm-hmm. And it's depressing.
Yes.
It really is, because you don't know if they're looking at it and they just don't find you qualified, or what the deal is.
Right, because that's part of the battle, right? And I speak from my own personal experience, and I'm certain this applies to you as well, Jeff, and many of the folks listening, is that it's not even the fact of applying, it's not getting any response at all. I do despise when I get the response of, you're overqualified, we think you'll be bored, whatever it is. And my response, if I actually ever got a live person to say those words to me, would be like, hey, I'm pretty sure I won't be bored getting a paycheck. I mean, let's just be honest.
And plus, you don't know if I'm going to be bored.
Maybe I
don't know.
I mean, truthfully, and a lot of people, and again, I'm speaking for myself, so I'm not taking other people's stories, is I worked up the ladder to be an executive director. Like, that's where I wanted to be. And I got there and I was like, this kind of sucks. As a position certainly did not equal happiness. And I had focused so much of my life focused on work that I missed other things. And so now I'm at a place in my career and my life where I'm like, you know what? I don't want that whole responsibility. I want to come in. Yes, I love managing a team. It's one of my biggest strengths, and I know it. But I don't want to be at the top anymore. I do want to take my experience, bring it down, and do something that I can go in or work from home, a true 8-hour day, and call it a day, and not be on call 24/7. Which I hated that about the the executive level, and then having to train people of how to treat me, to be like, hey guys, I'm on Sunday, unless it is a life-threatening situation, do not expect me to answer anything. And on Saturdays, it better be something that can't wait till Monday. But I had to train them to not contact me. So and I think there's a big portion of people that are at our experience level that are saying, you know what, I do want to take a step down and I'm not going to be bored. And why wouldn't you want that experience? That's the part to me that I can't ever wrap my brain around, because it's like, man, I would want somebody that's like, especially if you have a conversation, you can see, hey, I want to be here. This is what I want to do. I am so qualified and I'm pumped of what I can bring your business.
But that's the conversation. They're not
Right?
having conversations.
Not
I want to.
happening.
And
That's
what
what I'm
I do, I do the best is I interrupt to get the comments out. So I do that.
No, great. Because there's a lot of them coming in, which
So
is great.
Rosalind says, your emotions go up and down. You know you are qualified and cannot understand why those that hold your fate in their hands cannot see your work. And I know, you know, my conversations with you, Jeff, it's very tiring. And then having these, you know, trying to get coffee chats of strategically connect with people, ask people, and then having connections that they don't even respond back to you. It's because they're not in that place. And guess what? Karma's karma. And, you know, they don't understand what you're going through.
And they just flat don't care. I mean, we
they don't. And bottom line is, all you have to do is respond back, go, I don't know who to get to. You know, I wish you best of luck. And it goes back to also recruiters. Got a lot of recruiters I love. There's a lot of recruiters that are out there that do the whole, you know, talk on LinkedIn all the time. And then when you have a recruiter saying, hey, I got you in line, I'm putting you through. Okay, that's great. Can you tell me a little bit more? Weeks later, oh, the job's on hold, but you're still in line for this.
Yes. Ugh.
Okay. And then you're trying to message the person.
Right.
And it's crickets.
Trying to figure out
However,
what's going
you're seeing
on,
the
and there's
person
nothing.
posting. And it's just sort of like, could you just respond back? Because this could be a job that I would really like to have. However, you've got me on hold. They've got me on hold. I'm still looking, but let's just have an honest conversation. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Amen.
And I mean, I talk to job seekers daily, and I just don't understand the lack of empathy that people have, not showing up for an interview.
Yep.
Not reading when they say, when can you meet? I can meet at this time. And then they turn around and book you the time that you couldn't meet.
Right.
Yes, I love
it's like,
that.
yeah, but you want me to be the best of the best, yet you can't even, you know, and then the job descriptions
are ridiculous.
I mean, it says remote, but Texas. And then they call the HR person, contacts them, and they say, okay, I'm in Houston. Not a problem. It's remote in Texas. They go forward to the interview. Oh, no, you have to be in Waco. You're wasting people's times.
But it goes back to the whole part of, right, they don't care. And this is an example I've used previously, and it's not to say that the people that are in those positions are heinous individuals. It's the organization or the business. They don't care about you. I've been in the same situation like you were just explaining, of being, oh, the position's now been put off for another 3 months, but you know, you're still in the hopper. It's put off another 3 months. 9 months later, then they're saying, you know, oh, we decided not to fill this position. And you feel a little bit like, man, that was such a crappy ride. But they weren't sitting in a conference room saying, we're going to get rid of this position, but maybe we should reconsider because this might hurt Kelly Steineca's feelings. Like, they're not having a conversation about human beings. They're just talking about their bottom lines. And I'm not saying it makes it okay. It just helps us better process. No one's sitting there going, how can I really screw these people over? But I think the system is wildly broken, and it would be beautiful to see someone that actually cared. I would more appreciate a canned email that says, hey, thank you for applying. We'll be in contact in the next 3 weeks. I mean, give me some kind of
8
expectation.
months.
I mean, anything, anything, but they're giving absolutely nothing and then not replying when you follow up. Because I follow up, hey, again, you reached out to me for this position. We had a phone call. I gave you my resume, filled out whatever I had to re-enter my resume within their system. And now I can't get an answer of what the status is. Like that's the stuff that stinks. And I know that recruiters are overwhelmed and all those things, but really now to volley back to you, Jeff, with those things, because I know these have been all issues that you've gone through and even had recruiters, that in my opinion have been vile to you, that I did say when I heard the story, I wanted to be like, what is this person's number? Because I want to
That
call.
was somebody who wanted to do a coffee chat with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a coffee chat who just sit there and trashed you. So how are you looking at your strategic way? How has it changed in the 8 months? And I always tell people, because unfortunately companies don't really, we are family. No, it doesn't happen anymore. Even when you're family, it doesn't happen. Look at yourself as a business and look at the model to say, is this going to, align with what I want? And yes, I need to have a job, but I need to look at it where I'm going to interview them. So how have you changed your strategic thinking over praying and spraying, staring at the computer for 24/7, because we've all done it. I did it during COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was let go, talked to my manager the next day. He's like, oh, no, you're good. Next day, I got HR on the phone. Got to go. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I sat there for 2 months staring at LinkedIn, just spraying and praying. But it's a different way of applying now. It's different than where it was at COVID. It's worse. So how are you changing? It's all on you now, Jeff. You get to share.
Well, originally, like you, I was just throwing everything out there to see what sticks on the wall. Since that wasn't working, I decided to take more of a targeted approach. Since I want to stay in healthcare, I'm focusing most of my efforts on healthcare, especially a lot of the IT healthcare companies. However, I have been looking at some of the companies like A Place for Mom. And I know, they're national. They've got some spots open here in Kansas City, but here again, you try and reach out to them and it's like nothing, nobody's home. I'm also trying to make more connections within the company, not as far as a lot of basic individuals like your DBA or your PC tech, but more in the recruiting aspect of it, or more in the leadership or managerial field of it, and reaching out to them saying, hey, I've applied for this position. It's something that's going to fit my skill set. Can you connect me or make an introduction with the hiring manager or the recruiter? Something that will get me face to face, or at least on the phone with somebody. Mm-hmm. And, I know that you had talked about recruiters not getting back to you. One of the positions I applied for was for a software implementation consultant. Again, is for a healthcare IT company. And yeah, was I incredibly overqualified? Yeah, I could probably do with my hands tied behind my back and one eye shut. But like I told the recruiter, it actually gets me to the two things I like, which is healthcare and IT. And for me, it's not well, you're going to be overqualified, so why are we going to do this? For me, it's like, look, we're out there, we're helping people. One of the things that I like to do and that I was very good at is getting out, you know, and solving the problems.
Mhm.
I would work especially with directors to say, hey, you know, what problems are you having here? What can I help with? And whether it was, you know, we don't know enough about this product, or we're seeing a lot of support calls coming in here. Okay, great. Let's put together a lunch and learn or something that, you know, we can work with your staff on to get those answers resolved. And I mean, that's something that I really, really liked doing, was getting out, getting the customer facing and saying, let me help you solve your problems. What are you having? Or just based on, you know, data analyzation at the office saying, oh, I'm seeing a continuing issue here with, you know, this company. Let's reach out to them before it gets to be a problem and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Is there something that we can do to help you guys out with?
Mhm.
And that's why the overqualified are the qualified, because you're seen outside of the box.
Mhm.
You're not somebody who doesn't have all the experience of the world and life and everything like that. You're seeing different avenues of the industry. And
Right.
that's why overqualified, per se, are the best hires, because their main thing is to make that company successful, because it's going to make them successful.
That's right,
Correct.
and I think the job market is so different now, 5 years ago, but definitely 10, someone overqualified, part of the conversation would be, "Well, what is it actually that you're looking for?" And they would usually be like, "Hey, I just wanna get in, I love what your business does, yes, I would love an opportunity to promotion and grow within your organization." Whereas now people are just like, "Hey, I kinda don't care about the position, I need a job." And and that's such a different approach, and this is something that Greg commented on a bit, I think, about the emotional part, because when we are feeling in a place of up and down emotional, which is normal for everyone who's going through this, is it can also plague you when you do finally get an interview. Because one thing that, and I say this as someone who interviewed hundreds of people in my career, is when someone feels desperate, you feel it. And the whole part is like, God, do they really wanna be here? Because then you're not really coming off as your authentic self, you're not coming off confident. It leaves a different taste in the mouth of the interviewer, if you will. But my whole point of starting there was saying it's different now when people are saying, "I don't mind the lower position. I'm not gonna leave necessarily because I can't get anything else, but I need to plug in somewhere." And Christy, when you were saying about, people aren't coming at it from a compassionate and from an empathetic position, is remembering, you know what, people are struggling. And if you've been out of work for 8 months, and man, there's a few things that I've seen on LinkedIn lately that just honestly make me so ticked off. Um, and I know we're going to touch on a couple of them.
Oh, the
But
green banner.
yes, there you go. We definitely need to do that one next. Um, is when people are saying, "Oh, if you've got a long gap in your resume, you're being passed," and it's like, but it's not like it used to be. People know that people are being laid off and can't get hired. Um, and there's a lot of people, and I refer to myself this way, as an accidental consultant. Getting laid off and not being able to get hired as a marketing executive was a real thing. I mean, I could not get hired and was in several things that it was a 9-month process. And then I was told, sorry, we decided to eliminate the position. Um, that doesn't feel great. And you going through all that process, and I sort of lost my train of thought there, because I do want to go to the whole green banner thing. Accidental consultant, that's what I was saying. A lot of people started because you had to survive. And I just so happened to have a few people say, hey, can you help me with my marketing? Sure, be happy to. So I started that way, and then was like, well, I didn't plan on building a business backwards. And I love working with a team. That's part of, who I am. And I think so many other people have done the same. They've taken jobs, and I am one. I took a crappy job making 15 bucks an hour during 2020 because I needed to get the hell out of my house. I was tired of being isolated. I couldn't get work. I was feeling depressed. Gyms were closed. And I took something where I could go do a 5-hour shift, get 10,000 steps in, and go home just to do something. But that still plagues emotionally, I know, on a lot of people. Like, I don't want to go take a minimum wage job. Well, guess what? Minimum wage is better than nothing. And again, it's for mental health reasons for me, and I know some other people have struggled to do that. It's not a loss. I mean, I looked at it, like I said, as a way for me to get out of the house and get some exercise. I hated it. I'm not gonna lie.
But I think a lot of people have that thought process. If I go and work at, TJ Maxx, yet it's not on my resume, and
Right.
it's, it doesn't need to be on your resume. If you
Right,
look
you
at
don't need to.
if you look at my resume, I mean, I've got bullet, because during 2008 I worked 5 part-time jobs because of that crash.
Gaps aren't the same as they used to be. That's just kind of like bankruptcy.
They are, but they're not. So
That's
a lot
right.
of people will ask, a lot of recruiters, and they'll question the gaps.
Yeah.
However, if
You
you
have to have
go
a
in
conversation.
confidently and say, hey, during COVID, I had to take care of my husband who now died. We had things. I had mental health. I had health care. And that's why a lot of people want remote and hybrid, because they had all these few years of having to go and balance their life. So if you go in and, be confident and just say, why are you asking me this? And I am always looking at the person who I'm going to interview with, because I want to see, Mr. Recruiter, how long you've been recruiting.
Yes.
In that company you've worked for, because it's easy for everybody else to say you're overqualified, you need this, you need that. However, people, you can't even write a job description correctly.
Yes.
Well, that, and they also have been letting recruiters go left and right now.
Yeah. Well, and I understand that it's thin. It's thin. Yeah. However, now you're on the other side. Hopefully next time you get a job, you'll realize how to actually be a real recruiter with empathy. Going into, that was a long one. Okay. There's some great comments. They're long ones. Going into, there's been posts a lot about the green banner.
Yes.
And it ticks a lot of us off on that one, because I'm a true believer. LinkedIn knows what they're talking about, because it is a social platform, business platform. And so when you go in the back end to say, hey, I'm looking for this job, sort of just casually looking, it does, and I only want recruiters, the back end, to see it. However, no, I really need to find a job. Let's put that green open to work so everyone can see it. Now, why the hell would LinkedIn put that out there?
Right.
I mean, that just doesn't make sense. So I don't understand why people are like, well, don't do that. Don't do that.
And there was some recruiter that recently did that. And what made me laugh about it, quite frankly, other than the person had no experience themselves to be saying any of that, but I'm like, as a consultant, I'm always open to work. Unless, because you never know when a contract's going to be up, because there are different time periods that you're working with. I have some clients that, their work takes me a couple hours a week, as opposed to others that take, 15. So yes, I could fit in some more right now, or they're going to be phasing out. So I'm looking for my next. So many consultants will always have open to work. It doesn't mean that they're not working. They're just open to have more business. So that's one way to look at it. And and I'll turn back to you, Christy, on this one, because I know this. You had some great points on this one young person in particular who was saying not to do it, which I completely think that's a ridiculous thing.
She's deleted it. There's 2 of us that shared it, and with our own comments. And all of a sudden it's not on our post anymore because everybody was like, I'm sorry, what the hell are you talking about? Plus you're about 5 years old.
Yeah.
So you don't have the experience of life. You're telling people not to do this. And yet everybody was chiming in going, no, 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 except her CEO of her company said, oh, this is a great point. But now it's deleted. So when you put out something, make sure how you're going to say it and make sure that you understand life.
And the consequences of it, because there's other people that don't know and they see the post, and this is a mistake that I think a lot of people make, especially when we're feeling emotional and that up and down. And I say this personally as well. And I usually know when I'm triggered by a post in a way that I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a little too emotional today. But just because somebody says they know something, like go back to Christy's point, it doesn't mean they do. Did they copy and paste that somewhere? Did they go to ChatGPT and rewrite it? Check them out. Don't take it for face value.
They just want attention. They just,
right.
You know,
just because it made it into a post doesn't mean it's true.
So I'm gonna flip over on, because again, sorry.
No
comments.
We got a lot of big ones coming.
So let me go back to hers because she, you know, and I will say, employees do have this issue. So when you're looking for a job, and it's long, so she just said, interesting because as an employee, I can't get decent candidates for an open position. The market has changed a lot. Many candidates are expectations about me. As late as this morning, she had a 9 o'clock interview, no show at 9:15. The person, she called the recruiter saying she was stuck in traffic. You know, that's poor planning. So, you know, and this job, you know, the market is tight and unemployment. You know, candidates are very demanding, but, you know, you also have to give respect to the people that are bringing you in as an interview.
Amen. And that person should have called before 9, knowing that
I agree with that, but coming from that back end of things, and Kelly, you can probably, you know, back me up on this. Christy, you can too. When you schedule an interview, and I had many of those that I would schedule to come in, they'd be a no-show. And you would call or text or, you know, try to get a hold of them to see if something's wrong. Because I know that I would, on occasion, call them saying, hey, are you okay?
Yes.
You know, I just want to make sure you're okay. If you didn't want to come to the job, that's fine. I just want to make sure you're okay.
Yep.
And even the candidates wouldn't return my phone calls sometimes.
And see, that's just rude. You want a job. It's just rude. But even Patricia said, and this is true, this is very true, that, hold on, I got to flip it around. And I got this after I left a large company. This was back in the 2000s. But a lot of people can't get minimum wages because they'll think they'll leave and get something better, or they're overqualified, or you're applying for a job. I mean, way back when I applied for a cocktailing job, I had managed. I just wanted to be a cocktail waitress, nothing else.
Right.
They wouldn't hire me.
That actually happened to me not too long ago. Was I had a friend who's got a business here locally, and, you know, he needed some front end help. And I reached out to him and I said, look, you know, I already know your system because I helped you put it together. I said, you know, just make me a part-time employee. You don't have to pay the expenses for the FTE. You don't need the insurance, anything like that. Let me help you out until you get somebody that's up and going. And he basically told me no. He said, I did not want to invest the time that it would take for, you know, to get you fully up to speed on the latest stuff that we're using. And by that time, you're going to be taken off. And I'm just like, thanks a lot.
And that's the whole thing. You don't know. You don't know. I might get into this job and go, you know something, I'm digging this job.
Right.
And I can grow into this. So Ashley was talking about how she recently had an interview, no show 3 times with the same organization.
Wow.
Seriously?
You're generous. I would not have given 3 tries.
No, I wouldn't have either.
But a lot of these people have to go through 12 interviews. I work with a lot of executive assistants. Being an EA, it's sort of like dating. Either you're going to connect with the person you're going to work with, be the right-hand person, or you're not. Right. When you have to go through 12 interviews to see if everybody will like you, no, Because guess what? You're
I
the
think the
age.
most I ever
Yeah,
went
they're not going
through
to like you.
was, I think the most I ever went through was 7, and that was before
But you're an
I got
executive.
Yeah, I was
that
going to
was
say
right. That was
executive,
before
you're
I
kind
got
of
laid off.
expected more. I think it being even being on the interview side of executives is we usually in the planning of that, it was like a quarter or 2 quarters, depending on the actual position, that we would give ourselves a goal of when to have that position filled. And a philosophy I was taught very young in my or early in my career, I should say, was hire long, fire fast. Take your time to find the right fit for the position, which I agree. And the higher up you get, the more time you need to take because that person will impact so many more people within the organization. And then, of course, fire fast because of the fact of we've all worked at places, unfortunately, too, where there was that one complete jerk. I don't care who they were, what position, that got away with absolute bloody murder. And everybody else was like, why should I try? Because this douchebag is doing whatever they want and they're still getting a bonus and rewards. So why should I try? Because that negative behavior obviously impacts the organization as a whole, which that's a whole different conversation. But I would be actually curious now with Ashley's thing about someone 3 times not showing up. My first question that comes to mind is how old was the person?
Exactly.
Because
I'm sorry, I'm old. I'm 61 and everything, been around the block way too many times. If you have an MBA, and that's the reason why you have that director job, then act like you have an MBA. Act like the adult that you're getting paid to be over disrespecting people. Because I hate saying, well, how old are they are? And I always do that because it's like they're acting like children.
Yeah. Well, and it's just rude. I mean, my feeling, and granted, like I said, I wouldn't have given the 3 strikes on 3 different interviews. Depending on the circumstance, the first time might be it. Yeah. Because I'm like Jeff, I would reach out to the people if they didn't show up and be like, hey, I just want to be sure you're okay because you didn't show up and I haven't heard from you. I've had other candidates that were 5 minutes before the interview. Hey, I'm stuck in traffic. There's no way I'm going to make it there in time. I'm so sorry. Knowing that I can go Google that and find out if that's a true story or not.
Right.
1, 2, respecting my time and being able to say, I'm not going to arrive. It says by Waze that I'm not going to get there till 20 after the hour. Do we need to reschedule? I respect that. Life happens. And I think anyone who's ever done that it respects it, but to completely disrespect my time and not say anything, or if you found something else 3 days earlier and you have no intention of going to the interview, send a freaking email.
Right. Or at least say something.
So Jeff, with your interviews that you have gotten,
yeah, and
I know they haven't been a lot, and that's the problem is getting to those interviews. How have they followed up with you after an interview? How do they say to you, this is our timeline? Do you walk away? And again, most interviews are virtual. I mean, I'm a big person face to face. I'm all about the body language. But when you walk away, do you say, yeah, I don't really want that job, or yeah, I really like that, and then you don't hear anything? I mean, how has the process been for you?
Well, it really depends upon how the interview goes. There's been one interview where, the job description was one thing, and in the middle of the interview, you're like, hey, this isn't even covered in the job description. What are you guys talking about? And
yes.
There's been a couple of times when I've said, I don't really think this is going to, be something I'm interested in. But there have been a couple of times when it's, I'm involved, I'm engaged, I'm super excited about the position. And I tell them, hey, I really like what we've talked about. I want to know what our next steps are because I really like to proceed. And I either get okay, I want to move you to the hiring manager and get you in front of him. And it's going to be about 2 weeks because he's, doing this, that, or something else. Or it's, we'll get back to you within the next week to see what the next steps are. You get that.
And do they?
That last one. Some do and some do not. I'd say for the majority, most don't. Like I said, I've only had a couple that have said, hey, we want to get you in front of the hiring manager. And then it's up to me to follow up with them. And I do my due diligence. I always send a thank you letter after the interview, no matter if it's a phone interview or if it's, an in-person interview. And
that matters.
I always send a follow-up email, even if, they haven't gotten back to me. And there's been 2, maybe 3 times when I've actually gotten a response back from the recruiter saying, hey, I'm sorry we haven't gotten back to you yet. There's been an issue here. We're trying to get, sorted. But
for the communication.
For the most part, you would think, well, why didn't you bother to respond earlier? Why am I having to follow back up with you? But here again, these recruiters, they're inundated with work, and they're
not thinking. I mean, that's the whole thing, as Kelly says. They're not sitting there going, oh, we have to talk because we don't want to hurt Kelly's feelings.
Right.
Or they're not organized, one of the two.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Or too much. And I can say, and I'm not saying I was the a perfect hiring person by any means, but I followed up. I framed the expectation when people would leave. Thank you so much for your time today. We will be following up with you within the next 3 to 5 business days, whether or not you're moving to the next step, whatever it was. In the conversation, I'd always frame next steps, even if I already knew that they weren't going to be somebody going forward, because you don't want to end an interview by saying, sorry,
you sucked.
Now. But frame it. And also to take time, because sometimes I'd be like, God, they're not good for this position, but I know that in this other department, let me go talk to that hiring or the manager over there and see if they're hiring. And I would follow up. And what I totally respected about most people, and like you said, following up with a note, that always meant something to me, because it's like they care, they took the time. But if people asked me, why may I ask what the other candidate that you guys took had that I didn't have, or can you give me advice on how I could improve for the next time? And I would always give feedback, of course, constructive feedback, whatever the situation. And I know that's hard to get right now because we can't even get an answer from people. But I do like to ask, if it is a face-to-face, why was I not selected? And granted, usually it's been because, we're not hiring this position anymore. Which I think another level of issue is so many employers now are seeing that they don't need to have an employee. They can just have a 1099er and do contract work. Now I don't have to offer you benefits and other things. So, I mean, there's just multi-layers. And really the bottom line is of all of this, and I think Ashley mentioned this earlier, and we talked about when she was on, it's about asking for help. All of us, we're not good at it. I mean, I'm not. I've gotten a lot better, but none of us like to ask for help, for one. But the thing is, when we do ask for help, it is always shocking of how many people will reach out and say, we're here to help. What can we do to help you? And 2, connecting with people and having conversation like, hey, I'm just freaking struggling because I can't get an interview. I can't get in front of people. Chrissy's had these conversations with me. Because it hurts, and it's like, man, it kicks us in the ego, and that's normal. And allowing yourself some grace and reminding yourself that people aren't on the other side going, I'm trying to do this to upset Jeff or upset Kelly or whoever else it is. That helps. It doesn't make us feel better all the time, but having these conversations, helping one another, because I'm certain everybody, and all these robust comments that have been coming in are so thoughtful, is that we all really are here to help one another. It's not getting us hired any quicker. And I know that totally sucks. But
you're learning from other people. You realize you're not alone.
That's right.
And you both, and those who have worked with me, know my famous thing, get out of your head. Yep. Jeff hears that often. Kelly hears that often. I spent most of my life in my head.
I don't hear it often. I just know when I need it. I call you and I'm like, girl, I'm having a day.
Because what happens is we start spiraling down. Well, why haven't I heard from them? So when you apply, you apply, you walk away.
Yep.
You hear from them, you
Right.
walk away. Because their timeline's not going to be your timeline.
Never.
I've had a client that, you know, that they said it's going to be a few months before we even hire somebody. They hired him within a week, and he was just like, well, what's wrong with me? No, dude, there's
Right.
nothing wrong with you. They saw what they liked, so they wanted not to lose you. But because he's in his head and the confidence has already been shattered,
Yeah.
even though I just got, you know, hired, there must be something wrong with me because they're hiring me faster than what they should set, what they did. And this is unfiltered, but we mine ourselves.
Yeah.
Is that
Amen.
we totally do
Very,
that.
very well done.
You
Very
like that?
Yeah.
And we are our worst enemies. However, we have to be our best cheerleaders because we know what we're good at. We know what we're passionate about, and we know what we can do.
Mhm.
So just
One of the
growing
things
up,
that helped me when I first, you know, got back into the job seeker arena, I got, you know, several people that have kind of had to lift me up and bring me up and, you know, reach a hand down to me. One of which was, since I'm a bodybuilder, one of which was my coach, Justin.
Hmm.
And I told him that I would mention him on this just because I'm wearing my NU shirt and he's from KU.
Nice.
But he said the best thing you can do for yourself is stick in your routine.
yep.
Yeah.
You get up in the morning, you go to the gym,
Yes.
then you have breakfast, and then you start your day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to do that every day. Now, do I get up? Do I set my alarm every morning? No, I don't. But I still get up. I still go to the gym every morning. You know, having to take care of elderly parents now, it adds a whole new complexity onto things.
God bless
So they're up for adoption if you want them.
you.
But it's just one of the things that, you know, my friend and commanding officer Mike Doyle told me, you know, get back in your routine, get back in the gym, get your cardio going, get your lungs moving.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things, and you ladies know him, I've never met him personally. I just see him on LinkedIn, Don Cohen.
Mhm.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yep.
Cohen. The other day he had an episode that he was doing, and I think one of you two were on, and it was talking about taking your passion and making it work for you. And I had just kind of messaged in the interview about, hey, you know, I've got a great idea because elderly people want to be more independent. They want to age at home. They don't want to go to a facility.
Mhm.
And he read it out loud on his show, and I was just like, wow. And he's like, do it.
Yeah.
There, you know, people need that help. Do it. So, I mean, I'm kind of been putting a business plan on, you know, working on a business plan on the side
Good
while
for
I'm
you.
still trying to work for a job.
And I think that's great advice. And I mean, I say same because that whole first part of 2020 or the last part, because I was laid off pretty early on after the world shut down. That was a very long 8 months. And everybody remembers that first month of 2020 when the world shut down, March 17th, uh, was the slowest moving month of our lives. Like it just
Yeah, I
felt,
was actually stuck in South Carolina.
whew. And I had literally just moved out of, I just moved back to Arizona, thank God.
Thank
But I
God.
moved out of my best friend's home and into an apartment by myself. So I was isolated, alone, not being able to get a job. My parents are here, my friends are here, but we weren't able to see each other. I certainly couldn't see my parents. I would pass them in a parking lot so we could exchange certain grocery items because you could only get certain quantities or there were certain areas that you couldn't find things. And that's the reason I took the part-time job, or, the crappy work. I just needed to get out of the house. I needed a routine, um, uh, to keep me getting up, getting dressed, getting out of the house, getting some exercise, because there is something about a regiment for people that keeps it moving. And of course, exercise, and this is my opinion, and I know it's a proven fact, it helps us with stress and our mental health, getting your heart rate up. And because I notice even the harder I work out is when I'm the most stressed. Um, because you have more to release, and it's good for you to get rid of it. So I think regiment is just so important, and getting creative.
Well, and it's also that social interaction that helps, because when you are by yourself and you're doing the same thing day after day after day, and you've got no one to really talk to, that social interaction is what's really, really needed.
Oh God, yeah. And so the rest of my point, my screen went black all of a sudden. That's why I hesitated. Sorry. But the point of that too was exactly what you're doing, Jeff. The market's not responding to you the way that you had hoped, but you're on the side trying to take control and let me try something different. Let me start a business plan. Start having conversations with other people. That's how Christy and I are even sitting here, was just the fact of, there's so many layoffs. It's so sad of what's happening to people. There's too much negativity, too much fear. Again, what can we do to just help, bring a little bit of light and help others in a different way? Because this to me is so much more meaningful than if the three of us were just messaging, DMing through LinkedIn, and getting you out there. So I do think it's a time too to think outside of the box and start having conversations and be like, what is it that I can do? What is my passion? And can I turn that into a business? And I know that sounds great, grand, and glorious, but if you're sitting at home and you need a break from doing resume work, which we all know is a task and a half most of the times, take a break and work on something that you feel passionate about. Even if it seems like this crazy dream, who cares? Those are usually the things that come to fruition in the most beautiful and unexpected ways.
Well, you also have the time now. You're not working. So the time to go outside, go to the beach, go take a bike ride, go to the gym. You have time. So take time for yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have to take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Now, my thing is, and I don't know if a lot of people do this, but I've done it when I've interviewed, and this goes back to the overqualified. And what do you see on my resume that brought me in?
That's right.
Why am I here? And then I would say, and what on my resume concerns you? Well, I always got, well, you've moved around with a lot of, you moved around to a lot of states. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't get married until I was 59. I'm going to move to New York, Chicago, California. And I worked into different industries because that's what I did. So, squash that one, which I always do. I gave them their answer. But to understand where their mindset is, of why are you talking to me?
Yep.
And so when you say this is why, then you're able to say, and this is what I can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you open up the door where you're telling them, you're interviewing them, and you're saying, I'm the business that you need.
Right. You're not accepting what I shouldn't say not accepting, but if you're going to, I could not agree with you more on that. Don't, if I get into an interview and you say I'm overqualified, or that's afterwards, well, then why did you even bring me here? Because what did I say right now that's not on my resume? Because if that, just turn it back and get answers. Don't take it just because it comes out of their mouth. Make them give you more information. I think that's great advice, because you have to remember, I can't get better at this, or I can't figure out how to approach this different if I don't take control of the situation and not allow people to just throw a canned answer at me and accept it. Okay, I'm overqualified, or I'm going to get bored. So I'm going to move on to the next, and I'm going to get the same answer again and move on to the next. I think that's great advice, to turn around and ask them those questions.
So we only have a short time, and since usually Kelly and I do take over these conversations because it's very passionate.
You guys go right ahead.
It's passionate about it. I mean, we're very passionate about it. I mean, if we could hire everybody, we would.
Yes, true story.
Well, there's some people I might not.
Yeah.
But anyway, how can we continue to help you and support you? And what are you going to say on your next interview?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a good question. You two have actually done so much. I honestly, I can't thank you enough. Kelly, you were talking about, how it takes so long to just do a resume for a particular job. Well, before I met Christy, it was taking me an hour and a half to 2 hours just to tailor one resume for a job. And I'm talking to Christy and she's like, "What are you doing that for?"
Yeah, don't do that.
That's stupid. And, so she basically fixed my resume, and I can't thank you enough for that. And anybody who's listening, if you need your resume done, she's well worth it.
Yes, 100%. And I was really
exactly.
referring to those jobs, and I know you know this, that drive me nuts. They're like, upload your resume, create a login to their system, and then you have to re-enter absolutely everything. That drives me nuts. But yes, is the go-to for resumes. Highly recommend, and not because
100%.
And my co-host. It's just a fact.
Yeah, there's a little ticker underneath going, "Hire Christy."
No.
But yeah, it's in the white space, just like you're supposed to put all the job information from the job description in white bold, so that the ATS will pick them up. That's another fun conversation to have.
Well, it's because it's bullshit.
Yes. Exactly, 100%.
ATS is just a database.
Yes.
And then the recruiters are gonna filter what they need. I mean, it's just complete bullshit.
Well, and it actually took me a long time to get that through my head, because people are like, no, it's a program, and if you don't meet certain keywords, then it kicks you out. Well, it's not really a program. It grades your resume and it gives you a percentage number. And based on that percentage number, is where
and there's free apps out there where
hit that.
You can run your resume through and get a score, so you can have an idea of what that looks like.
Only if you pay for the premium stuff.
Well, I know when I ran mine, and it wasn't that terribly long ago, you could still get a free run through.
Stop using. Just stop.
And they won't do it because of that. And it's like, you can go do something if you feel you need to have a peace of mind in that way. I agree. I wouldn't bother, but that's just
don't use the stuff.
But getting back to your question,
go on.
Circling back
Yes.
around.
What are you going to say on the next interview?
Yes.
And that's coming up here shortly, actually.
I know.
Is I guess my statement to them is, these people are looking at expanding their software into long-term and senior care facilities. Why wouldn't you hire me? Because I have those connections. I have that experience.
Absolutely.
I'm your guy.
So that would be my question to them.
Yeah. Well, we're over as usual.
Shocker.
And Jeff, we really appreciate you coming on, and you're gonna knock your interview out of the park.
Yes.
I know you've done your due diligence. I know that. So I'm gonna say till next week, and then send it over to Kelly.
Yes. So thank you again, Jeff. All of us are sending you such positive vibes. You're going to do great. We're here for you. And we thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable with us in the audience. And so next week, we will see you next Tuesday at 1:11 p.m. And until then, just remember, we're all on this journey together, and together we do make it awesome. Have a great